steel was a gift from the gods. But these are dark times. The Queen's spell has turned steel to stone and left her army unmatched. Only you can wield the hammer of the gods and bend steel to your will. You have been chosen, Aran de Lira.
All right, so if you're looking to get up to speed quickly on some really interesting upcoming games, we've got one today, Blades of Fire.
Yeah, this one's from MercurySteam. It's an action-adventure RPG, and it's slated for May 22nd, 2025.
Right, coming to PS5, PC, and the Xbox Series consoles.
And the premise is pretty cool, actually. It's this dark fantasy world, you know. Your character, Aran de Lira, he's up against this evil witch queen, Nerea.
Nerea, okay. And she's done something unusual.
She's cursed steel, like all of it. Imagine your sword just poof, gone.
Whoa, okay. That definitely changes things for a fantasy hero.
Yeah.
So how does Aran even fight back?
Well, that's the hook. He has to go to this sort of mystical realm, the Forge of the Gods, to craft special weapons that aren't affected by the curse.
Gotcha. So crafting is key. And that's basically our mission for this deep dive, right? To pull out the most innovative bits from the early previews we've seen.
Exactly. Let's maybe start with the combat, because it sounds quite specific.
Yeah, what are they doing there?
It's described as directional and tactical. You're using the controller face buttons, but they correspond to hitting specific enemy body parts.
Oh, interesting. So like X for the head, circle for the torso, that kind of thing.
Something like that, yeah. Head, torso, left side, right side. It adds this almost puzzle-like feel.
Because some parts might be armored, others vulnerable.
Precisely. You can't just flail away. You need to read the enemy, find the openings. It definitely has echoes of, you know, those tougher action RPGs and the Souls-like genre, stamina management, learning pattern.
Right, that challenging loop.
Yeah.
But it's not just a copy.
No, it seems to have its own twists. Like you regain stamina by holding the block button. That's kind of different.
Okay. So blocking is active, not just passive defense.
Yeah. And apparently the controls themselves, they take a little getting used to at first. There's a learning curve mentioned in the previews.
And speaking of challenges, I read something about weapons breaking, like right in the middle of a fight.
Oh, yeah. Weapon degradation is a big factor. Your crafted blade can shatter, forcing you to, you know, either scramble with what you've got left or maybe even retreat to a forge to repair or make a new one.
Yeah, and imagine that happening during a boss fight. Stressful.
Totally. It really pushes you to be adaptable. And it ties directly back into exploring and fighting. You defeat enemies, you explore, you find resources, you find weapon blueprints.
Encouraging experimentation, then.
Absolutely. And it makes that whole forging system absolutely vital, not just a side activity.
Okay, let's dig into that forging system, then. You said it's central.
It really is. It's not just picking a recipe from a menu. At these special forge points, it's described as a proper mini-game.
A mini-game. How detailed?
Pretty detailed, it seems. You're selecting specific materials, and you can actually customize the weapon's attributes, like its length, its weight, the type of damage it does.
Wow. Okay, so the choices you make there directly change how the weapon handles and how long it lasts.
Exactly. It directly impacts effectiveness and durability. Making smart choices at the forge is, well, crucial for getting through the game. It's not just about finding the next best sword someone dropped.
You're invested in the gear because you made the key decisions about it. I like that. What about the bigger picture, the world and story?
Well, we mentioned Aran de Lira and his quest against the witch Nerea and her steel curse. He's not entirely alone, though. There's a companion character named Adso.
Adso. What role do they play?
Seems like Adso helps out in combat, but also with puzzles you encounter in the world, so a bit of utility there, too.
So it sounds like a mix of those personal stakes for Aran dealing with this curse within a kind of classic fantasy backdrop.
Yeah, that seems to be the vibe.
And visually, what's the look?
It's interesting. The descriptions often compare it to, like, the PS3 or Xbox 360 era in terms of maybe the art style foundation, but then layered with modern polish and detail.
Okay, so not necessarily chasing hyper-realism, but maybe a strong, distinct aesthetic, detailed environments.
Yeah, and imaginative enemy designs are mentioned too. Some pretty grotesque-looking creatures, apparently.
Fits the dark fantasy theme.
And the combat feeds into it's described as quite visceral and gory. There's dismemberment.
Oof. Just for shock value, or does it tie into the gameplay?
It seems strategic, actually. Like maybe removing a limb could disable certain attacks that connects back to that targeted combat system.
Right. Hitting specific parts has real consequences. Okay, so wrapping up the early impressions, What are the main takeaways? What's got people excited?
I think it's really that combination, the deliberate directional combat, focusing on body parts, paired with that deep, meaningful weapon forging system. It feels quite original.
That blend sounds unique, not just finding loot, but crafting your specific tools for a very specific combat challenge.
Exactly. People are saying that while, yes, there's that learning curve for the controls and systems, once it clicks, the gameplay feels really rewarding and distinct. It carves out its own niche.
So it seems like Blades of Fire, with this mix of strategy, action, and crafting, could genuinely be an innovator in the action game space. Definitely one we need to keep an eye on.
For sure. It's got potential.
Makes you think, too, with that whole curse on steel being so fundamental. I wonder if the game might explore that link between crafting, combat, and the lore in other ways, beyond just making swords and axes.
That's a great question. Maybe shields, armor, or even environmental interactions could tie into it somehow. We'll have to wait and see.